What's going on, guys? On today's video, I'm going to be showing you design and how to use some of the tools we went over with on the last show. I'm going to be going through actual bending of some of the material, how I go about getting from start to finish. I do like to design my frames. I don't feel like you need to be an artist to do so. These are simple drawings, but it gives you an idea. It pulls that vision out of your head, puts it onto a piece of paper so that you can see what you're going to do. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with winging it, but I don't like to waste metal. Metal's too expensive, and that can be what happens. So follow along, guys. Remember to like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the video. Alright guys, so after you have come up with the design layout that you want, it's time to get to bending. You're going to stick your tube in here. These are 1.5 inch dies that I have in here to bend 1.5 inch tubing. The amount of spread you give, so the amount that you pull your dies out, the more tubing you're going to lose. It's going to start bending it depending on how far out your dies are from the center. I kind of do halfway. I'm going to lose about 7 inches of tubing. You can't really help it. The closer you put the dies in, the harder it's going to be to bend, and you might get a little bit more walking of the tube. Like I said before, the tube is going to want to, as it's coming up, it's going to want to turn in a certain direction. So you got to watch that, because once you lay it on the table, you'll see that it's going to wobble, and now that piece of metal is pretty much useless unless you can figure out a way to make it work. You need to lube this up. Don't try to bend this dry. Use some WD-40, whatever you got that will give it some lube. Use it. I like, you don't have to be sparing about it, just get it in there. You know, you want it to be as lubricated as possible. All the way in there. The more you lubricate this, the better and easier it's going to bend. So there's that. So what I like to do is I will pull it all the way out, and I will start the tube so that it is halfway, the end of the tube is halfway on the die. See if I can show you. There you go. So if you put that about halfway to where you need to be, you should get, that's a good place to start your bend. Once you've got it there, you want to go ahead and tighten it down. Don't need to really crank it down, just get it tight. Helps if I go the right way. I like to, as soon as I feel it snug, I'll go ahead and give it 1 and then 2 turns on the snug. Here's where you're going to go ahead and start your roll. You can see you can one hand this. The tighter you make this, the harder that roll is going to be. Now what I like to do is I will go all the way. I will stop right in the center of that section again. What I have found that helps with it not walking so bad is just put the pressure on one side. So when you're turning this, put pressure on this side. Don't put pressure on this side, then pressure on this side, because yeah, you can bend it faster that way, but it seems that that's really what gets it want to walk. So you're going to go here. So I'm going to stop again, and the end of the tube in the center of the die. Eventually there'll be a small divot in here where this die has caused a dent, and it'll want to just stop right there on its own. So again, we're going to go 1 there, 1 there, full turn, and then we'll keep going. Okay, so we've got the first tube bent here. This is going to be our front tube, which is what curves the front, and I'm going to show you how to cope that fish mouth it here after I get the rest of it. I've got an upper backbone, got the front digger tube, My bottom tube will be straight. I use the jig as the bottom of my frames. So determining how wide you want them or how tall you want them to be, find something nice and straight that you can use. The way I figure out my distance from head tube to seat, I am 5'10" and a half. So I'm a pretty average male. You can always play around with the bottom brackets if you have somebody taller, or you can measure from head tube back. Now this is going to be your arm length where you want to be. So I'll take my head tube here. I go anywhere from 34 inches to 36 is where you want your seat. And you'll have some adjustment where if you're not using a bobber seat or using a bicycle seat, you can slide it back and forth. Distance from bottom of the bike to where you want to stop the seat, I'll usually run that around 17 inches, 16 inches. You want to remember, the lower you put that seat, you're going to have a chain running through that area. So you do not want your chain hitting the bottom of your seat or the back legs being down too low so that they're also hitting the chain. You're going to run into some fitment issues. You're going to have to add things like bicycle wheels or other crank arms to get the chain to move down. Once you do figure out where you want your seat, because also the seat placement is going to be, how do you like that look? Do you like the seat to be way down and the wheel to be way up on your back? I kind of like it midway. I still like it to be where you're sitting down in the frame. So I found that to be anywhere 16, 17 inches. And then you got to remember the thickness of the seat. And there's some playing around that we can do with the seat also, flipping the brackets. We'll go over that during assembly, which I'll do with you too. So right now I am going to cut these parts. This is the amount of tube you're losing. So I'm going to cut this off of here. There's nothing you can do here. You're going to have to cut this much off unless you've moved your dies inward more, which just makes it harder to bend. So just assume that anything after this crunch piece right here where the die gets into it, that's what we're going to lop off. I'm going to do that real quick with the grinder, and then I'll lay everything out. I'm going to show you some different ways to coat the metal or fish mount the metal. If you either want to use a Chicago brand style notcher, Woodward Fab makes one, Eastwood makes one. There's some cheaper ones. The Chicago one just gives you a little bit more movability, I guess. So if you give me a minute, I'm going to get this chopped up, get it laid out where we need it, and we'll go from there. Okay guys, so here you're going to see how I coat my head tubes. You're going to take your head tube, and like I said, I built this structure so that my head tube would fit in here. I can clamp it down so it can't move, and all my head tubes would all be the same. Once you figure out the geometry of how you want your wheels to sit and you figure out how to get the bike to ride correctly, you're going to want to set it up a certain way. This was all trial and error for me, so I really don't have a whole lot of information on what you need to do there. But first you're going to take your tubes. You're going to figure out exactly where you want to lay it. I trace my head tube out so that I can take this tube and make sure that I'm about 50% in the center of your head tube. You're going to get it exactly where you want to do, and then find that line that you've traced out, just like that. And that's going to give you this much area to cut out. So with this being flat, that's the center of your tube. You want to fish mouth this piece just like that, and your tube's going to slide in here. Same way with my backbone. The backbone, because it's coming in at an angle, you're going to want to do the same thing. You're going to want to make sure that you're 50%. So 50% of the bottom, not the top. The top's probably going to touch, and that's okay. Make sure you have it flat that way, but you're going to do the same thing. You're tracing that line across, just like the head, like if the head tube was there. And then again, center line, And then you're going to line it out here. You're making this triangle because this metal here is going to be removed once you put it through the machine. So that you can see how I have everything set up. I always draw in my bottom bracket. I'll get you a measurement from bottom bracket to seat. That's really going to matter more on the person you're building it for. If you're building it for yourself, you want to measure your inseam. The inseam is going to be the inside of your leg down to the bottom of your foot. You want that to be centered. That'll be centered here. So that'll be the center of your bottom bracket. Measure that all the way to where you're going to put your seat. And then if you're drawing on your table, you'll have your measurements set out here like I do. But this is going to be your bottom tube. Because I use the bottom of the frame table as the bottom of my tubing, I go here. I already have that set where I want it, so that is set. And then we'll follow it down. And then I'm just going to cut that piece off. Because you're going to come in here at an angle later. Once you get your tube laid down, you're going to cut that at an angle so that you can lay your tube down, and then you're going to cut the bottom tube that goes all the way back, and it's going to do the same thing. We're going to work our way down. We're going to cope this one first, tack weld it to the head tube so that it stays solid, come down here, lop this piece off, and we're going to start working our way from front to back. Okay, so now you can see pretty much how I set this up and what I mean by getting a really good fit on there. It'll follow all the way down. Bottom bracket, I draw a line there from the center, and that'll help me place it when I am ready to drill holes in that. Goes all the way down to the end. Okay, so hopefully this kind of allows you to see from my point of view, but head tube done, front tube done, cut it to where it needs to be. I went ahead and I got the backbone done. Now I'm not using all of this. Again, it's going to depend on your design as far as what you want to do, but I'm kind of going for in a lot of my frames, I kick mine back. I don't run them this way, which you totally can. I like to kick mine back to an angle. It gives it a forward, it's more of a design preference because it gives it more of that forward motion. Looks like it's moving while it's sitting still type of a thing. So here is where I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I've got my measurements where I want them. Again, head tube to where I like to put my seat. Like I said, anywhere from 34 to 36 is usually where I like my seat to be. So I'll write it in there, 34, 36 inches. I know I want to be in that vicinity, especially if it's something for me. And then I'm going to go from bottom to top. Out of the way. Bottom to top, there I am. If I want to be, there's 16, there's 17, there's 18. And I will write these out so that when I am installing this tube, because you're going to weld most of this onto the table or while it's sitting on the table. You're going to finish your center section on the table. Everything will get tack welded here. You're not going to actually burn everything in until you get it onto the jig. So I get this where I want it. This tells me where I want this to be. I'm going to have a post that comes out of here that holds the seat. Alright guys, so I think I'm going to end it right here. This is going to give you a pretty good idea of where we're going with this. Next video I think we'll really get into getting the metal cut, start putting it together, doing the tack welds, and then get ready to get it into the jig. I only got 15 minutes for YouTube right now, so remember to like, subscribe, follow, comment, let me know what you want to see. I can make longer videos the more subscribers I have, so help me out. Alright guys, later.